Be inspired by the best sales professionals, sales leaders, and coaches in the world of B2B sales. From IT services, medical devices, through to coaching and consulting companies, these principles will help you accelerate your sales performance and growth. Using models from the best-selling book Inspire, Influence, Sell, and award-winning programs from Focus for Growth, you'll have the inside track on the psychology, skills, and systems used by the world's best sales teams. We'll hear from some of the best sales leaders from some of the fastest growing businesses in the world. They don't achieve record-breaking growth by chance. They have a proven sales and leadership approach and a laser focus on growth. You can hear exactly how they do it, one conversation at a time. This is the Inspire Sales Podcast, and I'm your host, Justin Lee. Welcome to this episode of the Inspire Sales Podcast. Today, I'm talking with Joe Ingram. Joe is a brilliant salesperson, sales trainer and coach. He's someone who has over 30 years experience, and he's got a really unique approach to the way that he works with his clients. And you're going to get a lot of insights from today's episode, including how do we start to integrate humor into sales and really use that as a way to accelerate and deepen and strengthen relationships, but also start to help us use it to fast track some of those sales conversations. And there's lots of really useful nuggets from today's conversation. Joe also shares some resources, some secret resources that you can access at the end of the show. So please do listen to today's episode. I hope you enjoy it. And let's dive straight into this conversation with Joe. Welcome to the Inspire Sales Podcast. I'm delighted today to be joined by Joe Ingram. Now, let me give you a quick rundown of Joe's experience, and then I'll ask Joe to do a quick introduction himself. So Joe's a renowned sales expert and consultant. He has over 30 years experience and over $1.7 billion in sales generated to date. He's known as the sales genius. He has revolutionized sales techniques and strategies, delivered exceptional results for his clients in lots of different industries, and is engaging, as he calls it, edutainment. We'll get into that as we go through today's session. Approach blends humor and real life scenarios to enhance comprehension and engagement. Joe, thanks so much for joining me on the podcast, and welcome.
Absolutely, Justin. I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much.
Absolutely my pleasure. Genuinely my pleasure. I'm really looking forward to this conversation today. So, Joe, let's talk, if you don't mind, give us a bit of your background and how you got to where you are today, if that's okay.
Sure. It's logical that I'm in sales because I have an electrical engineering degree. So, those typically go right hand in hand with that one.
Absolutely.
So I grew up, I'm like one of the shyest and quietest ones in my family. So it's literally it was be funny, be loud, be known, or disappear in our house.
Right.
And so that worked for me. And I watched it a lot with my dad, who liked to implement humor in everything he did.
Okay.
And I saw people gravitate towards him. So, as like I said, self-defense in the house, we were always joking. We were always trying to find the next thing to poke somebody with because it was going to come at you. But got my electrical engineering degree. Why? Because my mother said, why don't you go learn how to put back together all the stuff you took apart? Right. And that's literally how I chose which school do I go to and how do I go get a career. And then I looked at it. I laughed. I went through it, left, went to a criminal defense law firm, ran their sales department for them. Right.
Okay.
And then ventured from there into automotive.
Well,
I've always been a car freak. My dad owned the gas stations, right? Petrol stations. He owned all those. He had that while I was growing up. And so I was pumping gas since I was 7 years old. So I was in the public facing people every day before school, after school kind of thing. And then once I got into automotive, my passion for the cars, my passion for people and going through, it took off. It was that synergy that I was looking for in my life the whole time, didn't know I was looking for, and I got to it and then immediately started taking the companies. Every time I went to go work at one, I took it to number one in the nation. And there's about 18,000 dealerships in the United States.
Wow.
When I got in, there was 22,000, right? And so But to me, it was always learning process. It was finding out what makes people tick. What was the thing? And that was always the fun part for me, was to take somebody who had a desire and show them how to get to where they wanted to be. And
Right.
so, and because of growing up, it's always been that I didn't know what edutainment was, in all honesty, Justin. I have a friend of mine who's an actor. His name's Glenn Morshower. And so we were on a video conference one night. I think it was like 2 a.m. We were going back and forth talking about his acting class and things like that. And he goes, you know what, Joe? You are flat out the personification of the word edutainment. And I looked and I said, wow, thank you very much. I don't know what that means, but the way you said it tells me that it was a compliment and stuff. And he's like, no, Joe, education and entertainment, you put them together so that, he goes, I'm learning from you right now, but we're laughing, we're having fun. And I was like, oh yeah, it was self-defense mechanism for me, but became a superpower in the fact that when I go into a company and go, guys, this is how we're going to go to the next level. This is how we're going to get ourselves moving. You know, you walk in the door to any company and what does everybody look at you, right? You specialize dental, right? You walk in, everybody there looks at you like, what am I supposed to learn from you?
Yes.
Right? I've been doing this for so long. And you have to get past that. So I play funny videos. I will play and make fun of myself and do things, because the second you laugh, your ego stepped out of the way to enjoy the moment. And now I can put stuff in that's going to make a difference in your sales career, in your ability to reach your audience and do that. So,
and all the guards drop, don't they? Everybody's guard drops when somebody laughs. When you laugh, and it's also infectious laughing, isn't it? So one person starts, it actually tends to spread through a team or through a business that you're working with. I'm very good. I love it. And so edutainment. So that you were gifted that term, and I mean, it does what it says on the tin, right? So it's about helping people to become better informed and learn, but also be entertained and find some humor in the approach along the way.
Yeah. And it's a softer approach to get to making an impact.
Yeah.
Where if you come in, and again, I've been through I'm going to bring in a trainer. He's going to help us scale. He's going to push our business forward. The guy walks in, arrogant as all get out, right? Go on social media. There's 1,000 of them, right? And so they're out there telling you, I'm so great. I'm so great. I'm so great. I'm so great. And then you stop. No one wants to hear you. Right? Only someone who's really, really weak in their own confidence will be attracted to that. And so to me, I was like, I have to be very conscious of the fact that I don't buy my own hype. Right. And I think that's where we get lost a lot of times, because, you know, again, in sales, you have to have thick enough skin to take a heck of a lot of no's.
Yeah.
Right. And if I've got to take a heck of a lot of no's, I have to be thick skinned. But then we forget that we run around going, I'm thick skinned. I'm thick skinned. I'm thick skinned. And you're like, shut up. Nobody asked you. They said, hey, did you want a coffee this morning? And you were like, I'm thick skinned. Yeah. And you're like, no. That's not going to help any of us. Yeah.
So what, give us some examples of how you do that then, Joe, because I'm thinking through the lens of our listener, right? Because this principle of edutainment, education and entertainment isn't just relevant for us when we are, you know, training and working with different businesses and teams. Really important in the sales process, isn't it, with customers? And, you know, sometimes I've seen sales teams, I'm sure you've been the same, where especially if you become under pressure, if you're under pressure for results, maybe, you know, you talked about a lot of no's. That's the one thing I completely relate to, and so do my clients. That in sales, it's one of those roles. It's unlike any other role. You get more no's than yeses, generally speaking, and that can start to erode people's confidence and energy. And actually, when you're in those really difficult moments and you've got to find humor, you've got to find engagement, you've got to stay confident, you've got to stay positive. That's not always easy, is it? I'd love to hear some of your either techniques or approaches where you've been able to help either you do it yourself or your clients to stay motivated, stay engaged and humorous.
So one of the things I find absolutely hilarious, and most people will join you, is when you acknowledge how awkward it is in the situation we're currently in.
Go on. Okay, yeah.
Right. So if we're sitting here and I just stare at you right after you ask me the question, right, we're just going to sit here. Well, I'm just going to sit in it and like this. And then we stop and I go, it's kind of awkward right now, isn't it? Right. And the customer looks at you and goes, yeah. And I go, which one of us is supposed to be talking again? Right? Did we miss that? And again, everybody starts to laugh. The second you start to laugh, it takes the pressure off of the situation. But I will literally stop what I'm doing and I'll go, were you listening to me? Because I don't think I was listening to me. Right. And they look at you and they're like, I was listening to you. You said da, 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 but that right there just got them to parrot back what I just said, which means they
Yeah.
were listening, which means I'm moving forward again into where I want to go. And a
Mm.
lot of times that's where most people mess up, is because it gets awkward. And if you don't acknowledge it, and again, why is it funny? Because I'm literally here with you. Right. I will laugh because I'm literally going, I feel this. And then you acknowledge, did you feel that? Right. Then they go, yeah, I did. What was, man, it was so weird. And we can go through and get past that point where most people would just sit there and start their spiel over again,
Mm.
which only frustrates anybody you're sitting with.
Yeah.
Right? And they're like,
There's so much in what you've just said. There is so much in what you've just said. I love, because there's always awkwardness in sales conversations,
absolutely.
and actually learning to be comfortable with it is important. But actually learning to flip it
Use
from
it.
being uncomfortable to immediately releasing the tension just by calling it out. That's genius. I love that.
Right. So a lot of times in sales, we say, what, you slide the contract over and whoever speaks first loses.
Yeah.
Right. I will literally tell them that. I'll slide it over and I go, remember, whichever one of us talks first loses. That's the game of sales. And then they just look at you like, did you just say that out loud? And I go, isn't that crazy though? And then they laugh and they're like, yeah, it's crazy you said it, but it's crazy we think that way. And I'm like, but
Yeah.
it's not that we think that way, it's that we were taught that way. Right. And we were
That's
taught at
true.
a time where there was no, I'll be truthful, there was no respect for the client.
Mm.
It was all about the salesperson's ego and how do I get to say next I have a sale. I made that sale. I went through and did that, right? I'm number one. My goal was to beat the sales guy next to me who was thick-skinned too and kept saying the same thing, right? And so I'm over there focused not on the benefit to the prospect, right? I'm not
Mm.
looking for, can I make this person a client for life? I'm choosing to say, I need to make a sale right now so I can
Mm.
slap a Billy Boy next to me and tell him I'm two ahead of him instead of one ahead of him.
Mm.
And
Wow.
again,
Yeah.
that's where I think the biggest breakdown in sales is the focus of the salesperson.
On themselves.
Yeah, their focus is wrong because it's
Yeah.
looking inward
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, well, what do I have to say to this guy to get my sale? As opposed to me, I always explain, we have to get rid of our ego
Mm.
when it comes to the sales thing, which means I have to focus outward. And I always take, and that's what I love about your show too, is the consultative approach,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I don't want to be the sales guy. I want to be the guy who knows stuff, right? I want to be the guy that's going to stop and go, but is that really where you're trying to head? Is that this? And I'll tell you, hey, so-and-so's product's better for where you want to go
Yeah.
or where you are in your stage of development.
Mm.
Right? There's a lot of us that I look and I say, somebody goes, I'm a startup and I've got myself and a phone. Joe, I need you to help me. And I'm like, I'm not that guy for you.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not helping the guy get out of his garage.
Mm.
Okay. Could
Mm.
I do that? Yes. If you were a family member, I would come in and help you. But the price point at which I am at now is not conducive for where you're at. So
No.
go watch the free stuff on YouTube. Go watch this. Go to YouTube University, right? Go and learn something that people have put out there for you to learn and get through. They're using it as marketing and brand recognition. Take advantage of that. It's free. Go out there and get it done. But a lot of times I look and I go, no, I deal with automotive a lot. Why?
Mm.
Because automotive has a really bad rap,
Yes.
right? The client walks in fight mode already. And so I love that. I'm like, okay, great, right? I always teach my clients, I'm like, guys, walk out there and point out the obvious. I walk out and I go, hey, welcome. What did you see online that you wanted to see in person? Right? And the customer immediately, their shoulders drop. They're like, oh, you get it. You're not the guy going, you here for the big sale? Are you? Are you? Yeah, no. Right? You can't be this person anymore. There's way too many access to videos and what have you to make fun of every sales situation you're in.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
the
people are
customers,
better informed than ever, right? So
well, people have, this is my challenge to you. I believe people are well more in access to information.
yeah,
They have access to more information than they ever had. Nobody's watching more than 30 seconds at a time.
okay, fragmented, right? Fragmented attention.
So they go in, they're not going, right? Let me see how to challenge a sales associate who's trying to do this. Let me see what is going on in this industry that I should know now. Right? They're watching TikTok, Instagram reels, Facebook reels. They're watching those less than a minute things that go, when you do this, this, and this, they can't handle that. And then they go, ooh, that's what I'm going to do. But nobody watched that was really a 60-minute video. And everybody goes, I don't have time for that. You're like, yeah, you should make time for that. You should make time to listen to a whole podcast. Right? But how often do we do that? We sit down and go, oh, that's a good, oh, I like that one. And then you jump out of something. Something else happens and distracts your attention. We have a very, very short attention span. Now it's what, less than a goldfish?
I
Right?
can imagine. Yeah.
That's what my friend Janine Driver says all the time. She's like, we're less than a goldfish. We're less than a gold. And I'm like, okay. So now I have 2 seconds to get your attention, and hopefully you decide you want to stick around.
Better
And that
make
has
it
to
count.
happen every 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Right?
Really need to make it count. Really need to
Apart
make
from
it
doing
count.
puppets, I don't know how you're going to do that. Right?
Yeah, you're right. There's this temptation to be shallow and wide. Lots of different things, short, sharp excerpts, and actually the value is going deep and narrow, isn't it? Not
Yeah. Oh, it's
not shallow and
definitely,
wide.
nobody is going deep. Nobody is going deep to learn a subject, right? Because everybody, I mean, if you look at YouTube, shorts, as soon as they came up with shorts, they're outpacing video length, the lengthy videos. They're like, well, no, you don't need all this. Here's this one clip, right? I take shows that I do. I'll take my show and I drop it into an AI program that goes through and watches the show and says, hey, in 20 minutes, it goes, here's 10 videos that should get you a lot of traction on social media.
Nice.
But it's only taking less than a minute, 30
Yeah.
seconds, 40. And it's like, here, grading from A to F, here's what the hook is. Is it an A to an F? Here's what the content is. Here's what the imagery is. And it grades it all for you. And it goes, hey, out of a scale of 100, there's a 99% chance this one will get you views and traction.
What's the platform, Joe? People will be listening thinking I need to.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Opus.pro, OPUS.PRO.
Opus.pro. I'll put that in the show notes today.
Yeah, please
Opus.pro.
do.
Okay.
It's a phenomenal product that goes in and does. A lot of podcasting software and things right now, like recording the Zooms and things, they have the ability to do it now. They're adding that in as an upgrade, which is to take the content automatically and cut it up.
Okay.
Opus was one of those ones I found early on, and there's a group of us that the second we find software and AI tools that work, we're like, boom, everybody gets on the same email to say, try this one, try this one, try this one.
Yeah. Wow. Very good. Yeah. Thanks.
Of
Real
course.
nuggets there, Joe. Lots of nuggets. So tell us, Joe, you talked about humor and the way that you approach sales. You've also talked about edutainment, and then there are steps in the sales process that you are familiar with and that you talk to your clients about. What are if you had to kind of name those key steps, what are the key steps that you recommend?
Sure. First thing I do, whenever I talk to a client, I go, okay, what are your steps to the sale? I want to know what theirs are.
Yeah.
Okay. And I always tell them, like, I went to one, Justin, you won't believe me, but this customer, I walked in and said, how many steps do you have to your sales? And the guy pulled out a document. It was 21 steps to a sale.
Oh, wow.
And I looked at him and I said, I already don't even want to look at it. What are you talking about? There's 21 steps to a sale. And the guy goes, yes, over the years, I've found this. And I was like, man, no, you're wrong. I don't know how anybody would come here, see you go, this is our how to sell book. And I'm like, no, dude, that's
21
wrong.
steps.
That's wrong. And he was like, okay. And I said, look, I tell everybody, if you're going to do it, you try to get as few steps as possible that
Yeah.
encompass a lot of things, but don't pick 12, right? Your 12
Yeah.
steps is a recovery program, not a sales
That's
program.
true. That's
So
true.
I tell you got to do that. So I break all sales down into 4 steps.
Okay.
And I go, and it's like, listen, believe, and buy. It's nothing revolutionary. It's like, listen, believe, and buy. Why? It's everything. Every relationship you've ever had has gone through like, listen, believe, and buy. Okay. So
Yeah.
you go, oh, that's what it is. But I just want to leverage what people are used to get there. Right. So I go, okay, so if I like you, okay. And again, how do we know we like each other? If you're just meeting the prospect, right? You look and you're like, okay, well, how do I know I like that person? You don't. They look at you and immediately judge you, right? If I was beat up by a kid who wore a red shirt every day to school, I'm immediately not liking you today.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. My unconscious associations are what drive. If you look like my best friend, I'm already starting to like you before we even spoke, because unconsciously my brain is always comparing you to some point of reference in my mind.
Yeah.
So I go, I can't do that. But what I can do is I can say you like yourself more than you like anybody else. Right. And yeah, we talk bad to ourselves, but I look at it. And so that's where matching and mirroring comes in.
Yeah.
Why do we do matching and mirroring? Because I want to remind you of you. That helps with like. Then what I say as I'm talking to you, you listen to it. If I say something absolutely repulsive to your belief system, do we ever get past that point? No.
No.
You're like, nope. So I say something, you go, like a couple times during this show right now, I see you go, that's right. Okay. So what told you you're right? That gut feeling in your stomach. It was like, boom, that's true. That's true. So the more things I can say that are true, that resonate with you, okay, then all of a sudden that like and listen, we go back and forth between this, and the listening solidifies liking again. And I listen more and I listen more and I go, like, listen. Okay, this is really good. Boom. I can just believe you now. Okay. Because what you have said so far has resonated with me. So like, listen, believe, and then believe from there. Once I start to believe you, then I can buy in.
Right. Okay.
I could either buy a product from you. Okay, because I'm comfortable with doing this. Why do people say, hey, you've got to watch an influencer like 27 times for you to develop that like and listen to bounce through to when you believe them? There's people I've never met that like, hey, Joe, I was watching this, and they're talking to me. I'm like, man, we are already friends. Because this person has consumed enough information for them to already be in the believe mode, and they bought in that this is someone I can learn from. This is someone I resonate with. And so it's either buy into a friendship, a relationship, or buy into a product or service. And so that's why going online, you on the podcast, right? It puts you out there, and the people that resonate with you can contact you.
Yeah.
Right. That's what we're all looking for. But it's the same thing in sales. That's what we're doing. So I have to sit down, find out what it is. I'm not the guy who says, we need to sit down and build rapport on things you like to do. Right. And again, imagine we're in a sales call right now. We're going back and forth, and I go, so like to golf? And you're like, what was that? Right. And I'm the guy who would look around and go, well, right now I should be building rapport with you, Justin. So could you tell me one of the things you like to do that's really obscure that I could say I do it too? Right. And you go, what? And then we laugh about it and go through. But right. I have other sales trainer friends who are like, yeah, you walk into their office or you walk into wherever you're at, the company, you look around and try to find something on their wall.
I was taught that.
Yes. I mean, it's old school. Go find a way to to build rapport. I'm like, I have that same vase that you have on top of that cabinet there. I have that same vase in my house. What are the odds? Right? None of this is real. The fact is, I need to try to build the connection with you. So I'm not the guy who says sales is about relationships. Okay. I
Okay.
believe during the process that we're here, we are going to push ourselves through like, listen, believe, and buy. I will walk you down that road. Okay. But it's not because we have a relationship. It's because I invested in who you are, what you wanted, and offered you a solution. If you get results, okay, that's where relationships happen.
Right.
Right. The relationship comes in the ongoing delivery of results. Because I tell everybody, look, you go, Joe, I need you to come talk to my company. I need you to, and I'm like, oh, okay, why? Right? Not let me schedule it. No, the answer is, okay, why do we need to talk? But so many people are like, well, because, right, I need you to come in and talk to him because I like what you said about this, this, and this. And I'm like, well, can we talk and see if it's going to be something else? Or am I going to get there and piss them off with the second 30-second reel that you didn't watch because you only paid attention to the 30-second one nugget that dropped that the AI said would be great, And it's like, no, let's dig a little deeper and go in. I don't want you to hire me, right, because of a relationship. I want you to hire me because you want the result. And I say, I don't want somebody going, here's money, come here, and we're not getting any results from you. And most people lose track of that. The answer is because, again, old school salespeople is like, I'm your guy. I'm your guy. Remember, when you need something, I'm your guy. I'm your guy. I'm your guy. And I'm like, no, stop. You're burying yourself in the process. But that used to work when people didn't have options called online to go find somebody. Right.
Do you think that's been the big turning point, Joe? The fact that people have access to more information, they can research, they can understand what else is available rather than just taking the relationship at face value?
I believe it's a huge impact on it because, so imagine if only one person shows up to offer you training, if only one person comes in to say, here's a product, right? What are your choices? Back in the day, it was like, do I want to sit down, open up a phone book and start looking for something I didn't even realize I needed until that guy came in? Right? Nobody wants to do the extra legwork. Now, today, I walk up, do a Google search and find out there's 30 other people that I like way better than you, right? That I can actually test drive using YouTube, using Instagram. I can go on and see in your social media whether or not you're a jerk. And I can go watch that and go, yeah, see, I wouldn't want that because that means it's an act you put on in front of other people. Right? Whenever I'm going to go do a show, I put on this persona, right? Whenever I train, I'm going to do this, but really I'm a miserable SOB on the other side of life.
And we've all seen that, right? We've all seen that in people where, they often say that salespeople do have to put on a front, but actually you don't want to put on such a front that when you come off stage, I think about it as on stage and backstage. Right. When you're backstage, you're a right miserable SOB that nobody wants to talk to have anything to do with.
You walk off after pumping up everybody and you're like, man, these guys are idiots. I can't believe they bought into that. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
And again, but it's congruency, right? That's what we're looking for.
It's a good word.
And I find it so much easier and less draining to be me all the time, as opposed to being this version of me.
Yeah.
If I'm going to speak to a client, if I'm going to go before the board to discuss what we're doing, yes, I will choose wording that's a little more polished than what would be my everyday.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, but I will find as the dynamic goes on here, we go back and forth, I become more natural to me as it goes through because I get lost in the conversation instead of stopping to go, I should say it's proper formatting to allow for, and you go, that's not it. It's just, we're just talking.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's, because I'm always interested in and intrigued by humor, because, you meet people who are they're just funnier, right? Some people, you're one of those guys, right? And it feels and appears and intuitively we'd think some people are funny, some aren't, right? But I'd be interested in your view on this, Joe. Can you develop humor? And if you can, what are some of the things you do? You already talked about, almost calling out awkwardness, almost that radical transparency, and that creates a bit of humor.
Yeah.
I mean, what are the kind of your go-tos in terms of being able to take an approach that's a bit more humor, a bit lighthearted? Because sometimes we can all take ourselves a bit too seriously, can't we?
Absolutely. Well,
Mm,
stop and understand. There's somebody, and they'll come to mind. There's
yeah,
somebody who's, deathly quiet.
yeah,
Okay. They're very withdrawn. They're
yeah,
still in the clique with everybody. And every once in a while, they'll say something. And if you were listening, you were like, what did you just say? Right. And you're like, wow, everybody has it in them. Just
mm,
not everybody has the comfort level to expose it, because what if it flops?
yeah,
Right. Well,
yeah,
right now there's an easy way. If it flops, you just go, that was a dad joke. Right. Because that's all it is. Dad jokes are whenever it was obviously corny and it wasn't working the way you wanted it to. Okay. But right now, everybody has the ability to point out the obvious humor
mm,
or awkwardness in a situation, but we don't do it and instead sit in it,
mm,
where I'm saying, here, just go out and say something that when you point it out, go, isn't that crazy that this is that way? And
yeah,
then somebody will go, yes, and it'll resonate with somebody.
mm.
And then you can go, if it fails, go, Joe told me to say that. Right. Joe said I should do this. I don't ever walk in, like, I'm not the guy reading joke books to make sure
No.
when I go in on a sales call, I'm like, so there was it's funny you mentioned you're wearing red. You did. But, because I know a guy with a red parrot. Let me tell you what the parrot said the other day. You're like, man, you're stretching. You're really trying to make something out of something else. Where, again, naturally, we can always see what's happening in front of us, but to call it out actually makes light of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's more true in everybody can do it
Mm.
kind of deal.
Yeah.
But
And I've seen a few, forgive me, Joe, YouTube shorts where they talk about what it takes to, what it takes to develop humor. And there's different actors and different situations where they'll say, here's a clip from an interview where they purposely did things. And there's some really interesting things that you can learn from that. One of the
yeah,
big ones I took away was that sometimes say exactly the opposite of what someone's expecting.
right.
So if somebody's asking
That's
you,
wrong too.
yeah,
Oh no.
exactly, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, and
Yeah.
sometimes it just shocks somebody or surprises them.
Right.
The classic one for me is when they might, perhaps it's not an awkward moment, but someone will say, I suppose you think that you did this, like almost accusationally.
Right.
I had one recently where we changed a venue because of the distance, and the guy who was hosting then had to travel. So he said, "Oh, I suppose you made that decision without me." I said, "Absolutely, because I know you wouldn't have wanted to be involved in that." So you
Exactly.
just caught, because he's expecting you to go, "No, no, no, it wasn't really like that. It wasn't like that
Right.
at all." So you just go,
Yep.
"Oh yeah, absolutely," and actually, it diffuses the tension. People then find it easier to just get back on track. And sometimes there's that, almost saying the unexpected can be quite a useful way to introduce a bit of humor to it.
Absolutely. It's true.
Mm,
One of the ones I love watching the most, just for that awkwardness of putting out there what you shouldn't,
mm.
is Between Two Ferns. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's
No?
Zach Galifianakis, the guy from the Hangover movies and stuff,
Oh yeah.
right? And he's there, but he's interviewing these huge celebrities. But then he looks at them and he says these things that they're just like, what? I mean, absolutely insults them, and they're like, "What made you? What? Why do you think you could?" And it's just, you look at these people, and they knew when they were coming on, he's gonna hit them with something out of the blue and say something and go, yeah, okay. But when you look at that, just watching how they go, they get mad and then they have to stop and laugh at the situation
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
there. And I
Because it's so
mean,
ridiculous.
because it's so
Yeah.
ridiculous. And again, that's not going to help you in sales, but it will help you to recognize when you're in a comfort level of friends. Try
Yeah.
it out and go back and forth. But you'll get to that level where you realize, reading people, what can I say? What can I not?
Yeah.
Kind of. And
Yeah.
so,
And sometimes saying the things that are on the edge of
yes,
what you should and shouldn't say can be useful, as long as it's always, you do have to watch your audience, don't you? You have to be careful that you're not going to offend somebody that's particularly sensitive. But as long as you're as long as you're the right side of the line, actually, I've found that can be really useful because it just changes the dynamic, doesn't it? And
Right.
actually gives you a
It
bit more.
connects.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It
The other thing
forces connection.
definitely, and the other thing I've found is that it can strengthen a relationship much more quickly if you can be a bit more. I guess the words, in the UK, I don't know if this is a US thing, but we use the word cheeky, right? So be a bit cheeky
Right.
because it just pushes people's buttons a little bit and gives you that differentiation. Because sometimes in sales, I always you'll appreciate this as well, Joe. I think about whenever you're in a conversation with a prospect, they're assessing the business that you represent, they're assessing the product or the service that you're offering, and they're assessing you as whether or not they can trust you and want to deal with you as a person. And so, you're a third of what it takes for a customer or a client to make a decision about you. So you have to take that seriously, and you have to do things that differentiate you from your competition. Because actually, if the product and the businesses are comparable, then what are you left with? You're left with, okay, do I want to deal with this person in front of me? So we have
True.
to do something that makes that customer think you are the person that makes the difference for me.
Absolutely. And
Mm,
again, the connection with the person,
mm,
right, that we start in this, you are truly being vulnerable when you get cheeky,
true.
right?
Yeah.
And so your vulnerability, them
Mm,
recognizing it is what's going to make them go, wow, he took a risk on that one.
yeah. Yeah.
Right. And your brain does this all for you. You're not stopping to go, wow, that was edgy. No, your brain goes, ha, he took a step out there because he must like me.
Yeah.
He must believe there's a connection. So your brain goes, so there's a connection.
Mm,
And all you did was solidify what you put out there, but it's in the prospect's head to say, oh, that was what it is. That's why you can't go too far, right? You stay away from moral issues, stay away from politics, you stay away from religious conversations, right?
yeah.
You don't get into the point that's everything's so polarizing.
Yeah.
But, right, could you talk about how expensive everything is today? Right? You can say, right? I just went to the gas station, petrol, whatever you guys call it, right? I just went out there and I'm paying this much a gallon or a liter, right? When I start saying these things to people, they're like, you're human.
Mm,
You're not just this prospect that I have to keep my guard up on.
yeah.
And so that's why they say the stories sell, right? And so you want to make sure that if you are talking with somebody about something, the reason a story will sell is because you're choosing to share part of yourself or an experience somebody had, but you're choosing to do that. And that's vulnerability that they perceive on the other side because they're thinking, why
Yeah.
does the quiet guy not say the funny thing most of the time? Because that's vulnerability.
Mm,
And
yeah.
so,
Yeah. That takes some practice, Joe, doesn't it?
yeah,
To open up because it's not something you can not do one day and do the next. How do you advise people get started on that? Let's say you got someone that is quite serious, has maybe an ego. We all have an ego, right? But maybe has an identity and an ego that is someone that's a bit more serious and professional and all that stuff. How do you help them loosen up?
loosen it up. So one of the things I always tell everybody is stop looking at you
Mm,
and look at your prospect. Listen
yeah.
to what they're saying. How are they saying? Because if the guy across that I'm talking to, either face to face, over the web, whatever it is, if that person is stuffy, me being flamboyantly hilarious is not going to work, right? There is no connection point. The
Mm,
difference is make a connection where they're at. Then you
yeah.
do that step out with something that's a little bit funnier. Now, I teach a concept called assumed rapport. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't say go build rapport. I say assume it's already there. I talk to you as if we're already friends.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like that.
You will
Yeah.
check me if we're not. If I'm too familiar with you, you will check me back. And you'll be like, whoa, hey, we're not talking about that. Then I go, oh, I assumed too much rapport kind of deal. But if I go into the conversation and already say, man, I forgot what Justin and I talked about last time because we had a really good connection. And then I start from that point,
Mm,
right? Then what happens? Like what would happen on the second episode we taped? There's
Yeah.
already a sense of familiarity. So when we
Yeah.
started, I started with that sense of familiarity, right? I was like, hey,
Yeah.
that's great. Oh, this is great. No, we can do whatever. Come on, man. It's just two guys. We're right here. Okay. Same thing with when I talk to other people. I already assume we have rapport.
I like that.
You're so busy going, rapport is step one on my steps to a sale. Just assume you have rapport. It gets you, how much time did you just save? Right? How many trainings have you been to? How many sales experts have you heard go, you got to get about 10 minutes worth of rapport building before you ever pounce into this section, right? And I'm like, look, learn whatever steps you have to learn, but allow the customer to drive the process.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we're so busy going, no,
Mm.
now we're in discovery. You need to answer questions right now on what it is, that I have so I can build a proposal.
Have
If
you
you
been on
don't,
one of my courses, Joe?
right? But again, is discovery important? Yes. You
Yeah.
don't even know what they need if you haven't gone through discovery, but it's not this has to be done at minute 11.
Yeah. True. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's where people get tied up. And
Yeah.
so again, I look at people because I will do this in there. I'll go, well, you realize right now what we're supposed to do? Right. Right now, I think we're having too much fun. So what we need to do is get back to, I show that on 7 minutes in, we should be at this point in the conversation. We should be looking at this. Do you have your financial statements that I can review? It would just save us so much time. Right. And the customer stops and goes, what? And I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm just saying we need to get to this point and we're moving this direction. And the customer's like, oh, okay. But I'm literally going to poke fun at the fact that I need to put us back on track.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, I like the way you're doing that because it's natural the way you're doing it. But
Right.
I guess it's actually even recognizing that that's something that you can do as part of the sales conversation, and then having the confidence to do it in the moment. That's really, I guess, that takes a bit of practice as well, doesn't it? I love some of those. A lot of what you're talking about, Joe, are making these assumptions and making them clear and visible as well. I really like the idea of that.
Right.
Because it really does change the perception for the customer. You're disrupting the way the customer thinks, but in a good way, because they start to lean into the conversation. I really like that.
But what does your customer always look at you about? He's going to come in here. He's going to tell me how much better he can make this. He's going to ask me 20 questions about my business and do this and that. Right. I'll walk in and sit down with you and I'll go, like, I dealt with a chiropractor. There's a large chiropractor business and he reached out. Okay. He reached out and he's still thinking like a normal prospect would. I know this already. So I walked in and I said, look, you reached out to talk to me. Why? Because you believe there's a need. Do you really want me to spend the next 10 minutes pretending that I do the same things you do in your off time and that I know everything about your business? Right? Or wouldn't it be easier if we just talked about what made you say, I want to talk to you? There's something broken because we could take this meeting from an hour with no result to 3 minutes with no result. Would you rather have the 57 minutes back? And they're like, well, yeah, I would. And I'm like, great. So tell me what the issue is. I'll tell you if I can fix it. Right. And then they go, oh, but that genuineness and realness is exactly what's missing in most of everybody's sales process.
Yeah.
And again, was I rude? No. What did I tell you? I could give you 57 minutes back if we don't do the dog and pony show. I don't want to spend this whole time talking to you about features, advantages, benefits of what I could do for you if in fact it's nothing you want.
Yeah. And how long did the meeting last?
It lasted 45 minutes by the
There
time
you
we were
go.
done. And of course, they signed the agreement and went on because we started with what was the real reason we were having a conversation. Right. And so I was talking with a buddy of mine, Grant Cardone. Some people know him, some don't. But
Grant, yeah.
yeah, so I'm talking with Grant and he goes, Joe, you know what your problem is? I'm like, what's my problem, bud? And he goes, you're still trying to figure out the next best way to sell something. And I said, of course. I said, I always want to stay cutting edge of whatever's out there and what's doing. I'm pushing the edge, right? And he
Yeah.
starts laughing. He goes, you don't have to be great at sales if people are calling to buy. And he's like, that's why I'm marketing, bro. All I do is market and people call me to buy. You don't have to be great at sales if you're
Mm.
great at putting out the message and putting out the stuff, right?
Mm.
And I laughed and I was like, you're absolutely right. So then all of a sudden I went and found Opus Clips. I found all of these different tools that can put out there and get people to attract to me without me having to go prospect them and go after them. Do I still do
Yeah.
prospecting? Yes. Do I still have a team going out there to set up meetings for me? Yeah. And as soon as I find AI to do it, I'll be using that too.
Mm.
Right. But
Hey,
that's what
I'll send you a clip, Joe. Someone sent me a clip last night of Apple's latest AI business development tool, and it's a real customer call with the Apple AI and a prospect that says no, and then I'll send it to you. It's
yeah,
fascinating. In fact, if I can find I was sent it as a message. If I can find the clip to it online, I'll post it in the show notes as well. It's
perfect.
absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's on its way. AI salespeople are on the way, and I don't
So
know how I
right
feel about that,
now,
but
what I find a lot of times is the AIs that are working, they set
mm,
appointments about 17% of the time. Okay. So it's
okay,
not going to be phenomenal compared to a real human who can adapt better because
mhm,
again, they're limited by structure. There is no
yeah,
deviation. They're going to
no,
go down this process. And so it will get better and
yeah,
it will go on. But I know I can't live with a 17% set rate because you still
no,
have, did they show up to the appointment and then did they buy? So those are all decreasing on the way down.
yeah, yeah,
So because a lot of clients are saying AI will solve my problem. And I'm like, no, AI with a great human
mm,
and can generate much better results than a team of humans or just an AI team.
yeah,
So, like for me myself,
mm,
clients are like, no, no, we only want Joe. I'm like, I've got 5 trainers that go out that have been trained by me, that have shadowed me, that go through and they deliver the same results I do. And I'm like, if you want me, I have an AI bot that I built with all of my knowledge. And so I have clients where I answer almost every one of their internet responses. Not because my tool answers it, because their staff is sitting there copying the email from the customer on the request, putting it into my bot and saying, okay, on this one, write me a reply for
yeah,
this.
yeah,
And then the reply comes as if I was actually working at your company, responding to your prospects to show your people. So then they copy, they paste it and send it off. And we're watching the stuff increase. And I go, wow, we are closing more deals. Why? Because I'm answering it.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
But is
yeah,
that a long-term fix? No. Then I started realizing the ones that started, the people that check their ego enough to use it, right? They're in there. All of a sudden, the usage starts to decrease. And then all of a sudden it's only these really weird one-off situations. So then I go talk to the client. I'm like, hey, can I talk to so and so? Hey, what happened? He's like, oh, I know how to write those emails like that now. So I don't actually have to go put it in there to have you write it. I now write it as if I was you. So they actually learn.
they're trained. Yeah, they've been trained by it.
They
Mm,
became trained just by
mm,
reading it to make sure it was okay to post it. So then all of
yeah,
a sudden they're like, I speak that way now. And I'm like, that's fantastic. Keep going. So then I get these one-off, right? If a purple gorilla was on top of the building, and I'm like, what is this? I have one person, I pull it up and says, I want to focus on world domination. What are my first steps? And I'm like, I look at the question and I immediately called the sales rep and I'm like, that's you, isn't it? And he's like, how did you know it was me? I'm like, focus on work, focus on work.
stop messing around.
Right. Another one says, how do I get, right? So I also have what I call a dark psychology bot. Okay. So this dark psychology bot, I had to rewire it so that it would do things, but it was like, okay, well, how do we use more manipulation than persuasion and stuff? And so the guy literally types in, how do I get the girl sitting next to me to shut up and think it was her idea? like that. And I was laughing. I was like, I immediately texted him. I go, is so-and-so sitting next to you? He goes, how do you know this? And I'm like, I got the printout of all the questions and stuff, but yeah.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. Well, that's where, and AI is impacting us all, and it will do more so in the future. The final question, Joe, and then we'll wrap up, is,
Sure.
so what advice would you give younger Joe? What advice would you give yourself? I don't know, maybe early 20s starting out?
Um, Again, when I look back and I'm like, what would I tell myself to do? Because that's a great question to reflect back on and look at. And
Yeah.
then you should go tell every person you know when you come up with that idea, whatever that one was for you. Every kid you see, tell them, right? To me, besides buy Apple stock, right? I would tell myself, I'd look at it and say, stop doing what people tell you you should do, right? I wonder
Yeah.
how much money I left on the table because I didn't follow that. I loved automotive and that I engage in sales instinctively
Yeah.
based on what I went through in my life. So if you talk to me at 20, I was working as an RF technician in a aerospace company.
Right. Right.
That was nothing I wanted to do.
Mm.
But you should go do this. You should go do that. You should go figure out how to put the things away, put the things back together you took apart, like the alarm clocks and all this other stuff. I was just curious. It wasn't anything that motivated me.
Mm.
But now I had a 10-year career, okay, in electrical engineering that I had no drive, desire, or want to do because someone told me you should go do this.
Mm.
So they say you should all over yourself. So, but it's like stop and figure out. Today, I'm going to tell you, go use AI to figure out what your passion is and
Mm.
then what business you can build on it. Because I am truly happier trying to impact people's lives by making sales something
Mm.
that they realize they can do because we all do it. But that to me would have been, man, I'd be over there going, don't do what people tell you should do. Okay. And it took me into my 30s, but my slogan is never be normal. Normal people get normal paychecks.
Mm. That is true.
Okay. And I
Yeah,
say,
that
if
is
you look
true.
at anybody who's at the top of their industry getting the big check, they don't do things normally.
No. So don't do what people say you should do, because actually you know yourself best.
Right.
Mm. And that what you've just described, it always reminds me. I'm sure you're familiar with it, Joe. You know the Ikigai model from Japan.
Yes.
Yeah, where they talk about those four intersecting priorities of your life. And it's what you're passionate about, what you're good at, what you can make money at, and what the world needs. And
Yep.
if you can try and really hone in on those four things, and I've similar to you actually, I'm the same. I kind of came to sales and this work that I do later, perhaps than I would have done if I'd had a bit more courage or if I'd followed my own intuition rather than doing what perhaps other
Right.
people expected of me.
But
It's really good
again,
advice.
what
Really
is
good
it?
advice.
What is it people say? I work 50, 60 years so that I can retire for the 10 years before I die and do what I want.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's like it's so broken that you need to go do this, right? And
Mm.
again, the internet has helped us to find I can do something that I enjoy. You could
Mm.
literally Google search and say, what is my passion checklist? Right. And then
Yeah.
somebody has built a checklist for you to go through and answer these questions.
Yeah.
So, but that would definitely be it.
Find it earlier. Find it earlier. Yeah.
Find
For
it earlier. Yes.
people that started their careers, that's really good advice. Actually, people at a stage in their life where they're looking to really hone into their passion, it's brilliant advice.
Right.
Joe, thanks so much for joining me. It's been a great conversation. Before we wrap up, anything else that you wanted to share that I haven't got to in this conversation?
No, you've been wonderful.
Oh, well, so have you. Thank you very much. That's really kind of you.
Thank
Joe,
you.
if people want to find you, reach out to you, connect with you, I will put all your links in the show notes. Where's the best place? Where do you like people to come and find you?
The best place to find me is thegeniuslinks.com.
The
So
Genius
that
Links.
has sample training, has links to all my social media, has links
Ah,
to
brilliant.
everything Joe on the web. And so you can go there, filter it out. For your listeners, Justin, tell them to go all the way to the bottom of the page.
Yeah.
And there's a ghosted out tab that says secret stuff.
Oh,
Tell them to click on that. They'll find free ebooks that I've accumulated over the years. They'll find sample sales training, actual PowerPoint presentations I've done.
Nice.
Right. And so let them know to go there. And I'll just activate the link. Yeah.
Right. Secret stuff at the bottom of your page. That's great. I'll put that in the show notes and a note with what we've just discussed to check out the secret stuff.
Absolutely.
You are a superstar. Thanks so much, Joe.
I appreciate
Thanks for giving your time and your advice and experience so generously. It's been a great conversation. I'm sure our listeners will get a lot of value from it as well. Wishing you a continued success, and hopefully I'll see you again in the future.
Absolutely. I appreciate you. Success right back to you.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Joe. Take care. See you soon.
Take care.
I hope you've enjoyed today's conversation with Joe. Please do feel free to check out his website and those secret resources. I'll share the link to Joe's website in the show notes, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Genuine thanks for listening to the Inspire Sales Podcast. We hope you enjoy learning some of the most cutting-edge sales techniques and getting close to some of the greatest sales leaders in the world now and in the future. If you'd like to explore further, please feel free to visit our website, focusforgrowth.co.uk. And if you'd like to take our Sales Acceleration Scorecard and discover your sales and influencing score, then check out the show notes for the link in the bio. If you have enjoyed this episode, please hit the subscribe button. If you know people in your sales and leadership network that you think would like to listen to, then please share this episode with them. I'd be very grateful. If you'd like to get in touch with me, please feel free to do so. If you have suggestions for further guests, or if you'd like to appear yourself, please contact me or my team. You can connect with me. I'd love to hear from you. My social profiles are in the show notes, and I look forward to being with you on the next episode. Thanks again for listening. See you soon.